Hi, I'm Imogen Lamport from Inside Out Style and 16 Style Types, and I'm here with Jill Chivers, my co-creator of 16 Style Types, and her new book, Shop Your Wardrobe, which chronicles her year without clothes shopping, which was from the end of 2009 to the end of 2010. And what she has learnt, and many things. And one of the things that fascinated me, Jill, as I was reading this, is you talk about kind of like, when you figured out you have an overshopping problem, so you stop and you start doing other things. And you start going, well, how can I express my creativity? Because of course, being an ESFJ or having ESFJ preferences, SFs, as we know, we call them the style estheticians. And they have a need for beauty in their lives. This is actually kind of almost part of your DNA. And so I did notice that this is still very important to you, isn't it?
It is, but we hadn't created 16 style types when I started my year. And if we had, I think I would have had a lot more equipment to have dealt with it. It was only on reflecting 10 years down the road and having had the benefit of linking style and psychological type that I was able to put together and piece these things together in a new way that did equip me to understand some aspects of my over shopping. And also, 10, 11 years ago and before that, I never thought of myself as being creative or even creatively inclined. I really thought of myself as being sort of much more transactional and very methodical and organized and planful and all of these kinds of things. So I never really had a connection to my own creativity. And I think what a barren existence I led in many respects as a result of not claiming and understanding my own creativity. And of course, now what I know and what we know is that every woman can be creative in her own way. And type is a wonderful lens to look at your own creativity through. And having that SF in my type code, that style esthetician, really helped me to see that it is practical, kind of like wearable art as one way, or sort of domestic art as a way of thinking about a way of channeling my creativity. It's not something that's highly original or abstract or something that you think, if I put this on its side, would it make more sense? It's something you can wear, like, let me upstyle a pair of shoes or, restyle jewelry, anything like that has a practical wearable element to it. And I kind of wished I knew back then what I now know, but I didn't. But at least now I get to shine that retroactive light on it, and it helps me to have a little bit more compassion and understanding for what I was actually trying to achieve, which I was sort of grappling around. And I was sometimes grasping at the right things, but often not as well. It was all very random. And this is, of course, another gift that type gives us, is it can take some of that randomness out, because you see those patterns which type introduces for us. And we get to say, hey, what of these patterns am I using and applying in my life? And that's just so helpful.
It was fascinating to me because as I was reading the book and you start talking about how you decided to, maybe you're going to remake some necklaces and beads and get a few extra beads and put your kind of creativity to work, give you something to do when you had that feeling I need to go shopping. Well, what else can I do? So it's kind of an act of self-care. And what's fascinating to me is, if we talk type dynamics, is ESFJ. So you have your dominant function is extroverted feeling, which is kind of what got you into trouble, I think, in many ways, looking at the shopping. That it's the I must have it right now feeling that you get, and it's that instant decision making that comes with extroverted feeling as well. It's like, I just want to make the decision and I want to do it and I need to get it right now, and I've got this feeling, and
yeah.
But then I noticed when you were just talking about this kind of beating, what I was seeing was your extroverted intuition really coming into play here, allowing you to have ideas and to go, what would it be like? Like I said, what if I did this? And what if I pulled this off here? And what if I did that? And I saw, again, this is really like, it was kind of quite a developmental kind of like extroverted intuitive activity that you were funneling energy into.
Yeah, that third function, tertiary function.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's interesting, isn't it, to go back to moments in our life and put that type lens over it and look at those aspects and how we're using them. And I agree with you, this sense of playing around, possibilities, options, what if, what if, what if being a wonderful intuitive question in general, but specifically extroverted intuition, ideas in the external world, popping fireworks, bouncing balls, whatever it is that you want to use as a metaphor. So yeah, that's a really great observation, and I think an accurate one.
Yeah, and I noticed it even, because it's your tertiary function, it's not quite it's not somebody who has it as their, dominant function.
Yeah.
People, you'll talk about, I was making the shoes, and there was a little bit of it was a little bit, not quite as refined as someone who might do that as their, as their lead or dominant, something that it's so easy to, but still it was great enjoyment, and I can see that you get great enjoyment from doing this upcycling, improving, reworking, whatever words you want to use, to your garments, your accessories, because style is such an important part of your life, and then being able to use that as a kind of a fun, like it's fun and it's relaxing and it's enjoyable.
Absolutely. And one of the things I talk about is the before, during, and after elements of over shopping, and how for over shopping, the after bit can be filled with a lot of remorse and related emotions. And when you upcycle and recycle and tap into your creativity, that does not happen. For a start, your before shopping is often, it's a totally different experience, because it's about existing pieces and the potential within what I already have. And sometimes I will do a challenge where I'll say, I'm going to, repurpose. I just did something on the weekend. I spent about 3 hours with my earrings, and my challenge was, I'm not going to add a new bead or anything. And I even reused the wires. So when I took everything off, I reused and the finding that goes through the ear. You'd think I know the term, but I don't. And that was my challenge, and it contributed to the enjoyment of it. So, recognizing, for me, it's not just about the creativity of it, but there's this over shopping sort of element that's layered into it. And for me to have a before, during, and after shopping experience, that recognizing the various pieces that need to fit into it. And so I find that really, really stimulating. It's a great place to channel my creativity. And I find it incredibly uplifting, and I can be in the flow with it. I can have my sewing machine out, and I'm not much of a sewer. I'm more of a constructor, if you like. I'm sure that Patrick Grant on the Great British Sewing Bee would be dismayed at the construction of my garments, but to me, it's the process of doing it is a huge part of what makes that worthwhile. I can spend hours, and I lose track of time. That sense of flow. We often talk about how when you have true type going, when you have that sense of flow.
Yeah. So one of the things too, you talk about various things in the book. There's the emotional reasons for becoming an overshopper. There's those sorts of things as well, which probably as a feeling type I don't know, do you think overshopping may be something more related to feeling types, or do you think there's, it's a equal across the board?
That's an interesting one. And I do think that there could be something SF related because of this sense of needing aesthetic beauty, although I don't think that it's always related to clothing. I have someone in my world who has ESFP preferences, and she's not remotely interested in personal style, but she's a gardener, and she does a little bit of over shopping in the garden. She can come back with plants. I have no idea where these plants are going to go. I didn't even know that I wanted them until I saw them, and there they are. Now the whole back of the car is full with plants she has no place for. Now I look at that and I see the same process is in place. So I do wonder whether or not SFs don't have something going on with respect to it. But it would be an interesting exercise. I don't want to unfairly assign overshopping to other types without having really done a bit more of a study. But I do think we all have something, and I think that type offers an insight into that something, whether or not that's overdoing analysis, overdoing critique, overdoing controlling of resources, whatever it is, overdoing ideas. You know, I've worked with people, you know, where all of those things were at play.
Yeah.
And I certainly think your insight about extroverted feeling being part of the thing that got me into trouble, I couldn't agree with you more about that quick decisiveness, disconnecting from all other functions which might feed into it. And we often use the Z model or the Z model, where we look at least the 4 functions, if not the 8 functions, where we look at feeling, thinking, sensing, intuition. And for me, totally blocking myself off from that wonderful, rational, logical of thinking. Where's thinking? What's it offering here? And how I, you know, didn't have enough of that going on. You know, so there's all kinds of wonderful insights that you can use to help you.
Yeah, I haven't noticed just even that balance of your introverted sensing would have made a difference if you'd gone, do I have something like this at home already? Like,
yeah.
You know, like, you know, kind of thinking about what's already in the wardrobe, kind of like not even getting that far, let alone having to go to the logic.
Yeah. Exactly. Just anything to balance. And this is, of course, what type offers us, is a pathway for balance. And, you know, this is one of the things that can happen when you cut yourself off from accessing those balance points, is you get out of whack. And I knew my shopping was out of whack. I just knew it. I could feel it. And it was heavy, and it was like an unexploded bomb in my chest. And, you know, I didn't want to live with that for the rest of my life. And, you know, having not done 16 style types, you know, I was aware of type. I'd been a type practitioner for 12 or so years at that stage, still using it in my professional life. But because I didn't have this connection to style in particular, it was a tool that just didn't have as much mileage for me as it did reflecting back now that we've done 16 style types and we have this awesome tool to link to our style.
Yeah. And so, you know, and one of the other things I noticed, particularly with probably people who have the extroverted feeling as one of their more dominant, or, you know, their secondary auxiliary what's it called, functions,
yeah.
is that there's often a need to please in a way as well. And so it can be going shopping and pleasing a friend you're with, like if a friend says it's good, or their friend says you look good, or the sales assistant says you look good, or, you know, I want to go, my husband might like this, like whatever it is, there is often a need to please. Or they've worked hard for me, they've gone out, they've got some stuff, they had to go out the back and get a different size, like all that is so I should take something home. I should, you know, which does feed in. There's a lot of things in the shopping environment that can feed into buying unnecessarily that may have ended up kind of down the track, you know, kind of creating this over shopping monster.
Absolutely. And, you know, extroverted feeling being about connection and external harmony with others in particular, but there can be a bit of environmental harmony as well. And this is where others can unwittingly play into this. Now, my husband has been nothing but fabulously supportive. And this is not in any way to sort of point any fingers, but him appreciating my shopping when I came home, I now realize kept me stuck a little bit. That is not his fault. But now I can see the impact of coming home and doing a bit of a fashion parade and getting positive comments because my husband is my biggest fan, how that was feeding into a pre-existing thing happening within me that I had no awareness or very little awareness about how that was affecting me. And I know now how susceptible I am to complimentary comments about how I look. And so that just being aware of that helps me to put it into context and helps me to understand that external positive feedback from others, particularly related to what I'm wearing, needs to always be contextualized for me to be able to experience it as 100% positive and not something that's going to lead me into a place I don't want to go, which is into a place of vanity, where I'm too absorbed with how I look, or into buying something that I don't want or need. Now, that sounds all very nice and neat, me saying that, and I can tell you there has been an enormous amount of emotional work and pain that has gone on to coming to that place of awareness. That has been a very, very difficult emotional road to get there. But, you know, I feel like I've gotten the benefit of that, and it certainly gives me hope that moving forward I may continue to, you know, carry a helpful and fairly high-powered light to help illuminate this pathway.
You do mention vanity in the book, and you talk, and this is one of the things I quite find fascinating, because, you know, there is this, vanity is a sin. It's one of the 7 deadly sins. But then also, and pride is a sin. And I think pride and vanity can sometimes be a bit associated with each other. But then there is also well, you've got to look after yourself, and looking nice is not necessarily negative.
Yeah.
And pride is not necessarily negative. Like, I don't think any of these things, like, I don't see vanity as negative. It's only when it becomes narcissistic, it becomes negative. And I don't know too, when we, you know, like, and this is where it's like, I'm going, is the message you got, but because you were brought up in quite a religious household, that vanity is a sin, that became more negative, you know, and a kind of more loaded word, than it might have been. I don't know, like.
Yeah. It was. Being vain was one of the worst things you can be. I remember once, one of the most hurtful things my mother ever said to me, and again, I'm not blaming, but it is one of the early messages that I got, that I internalized, was Jill is purely ornamental.
Wow.
You know, I could weep now just at if I really went deep into how that impacted me, because that was a terrible thing to be accused of, being purely ornamental, as well as the, you know, I grew up in an evangelical religion, and vanity was not a good thing. Also, one of the things that we discovered in researching style types was one of the things that is most likely to happen for ESFJs above and beyond the other 15 types is they can become quite involved in the things on us, you know, how we look, because they are the style advisor. They're not only interested in it when it comes to self, but they have this natural, you know, coaching ability with others. They're often asked for style advice, even if they have no training in it. And so they're immersed in it, and it can be overdone. Like everything to do with our type, it can be overdone. And so, you know, when we were writing the style type reports, Jane wrote that for ESFJ, I found that hit me between the eyes like a sledgehammer. And I immediately related that to my overshopping issue, was this a natural tendency that is positive that's overdone. And I think this is the thing, it's about balance. And see, my balance for vanity could be very different to your balance for vanity. You had a completely different set of messages, as did, you know, everybody. But for me, it was highly negative. And I think it also tied into this sense of not being enough. So this sort of, you know, this compensatory thing, this is how I've made sense of it, you know, and I think then you can also look at other things about the kind of world we live in and what's supposed to be attractive for a woman. And there, you know, it's not just a one note, you know, piece of music. There are many elements to it, but I certainly struggled a lot with my own feelings of vanity and overdoing it and feeling too vain and not having this stuff in proportion, it being out of balance, out of whack. And, you know, this is really what I was seeking to achieve, was some sense of balance. And you put that into type terms, and of course that's the sort of journey of individuation that Jung talked about, and how we can use type as a handrail to guide us through these moments in our life. And it's just, it truly is incomparable when it comes to the equipment that it can give us.
So did you notice, just talking about kind of like, you know, when you're thinking about you were getting out of this phase of overshopping, so you decided to take a year off shopping, and you just, you know, like, so first of all you just went, I'm not going near the shops, but of course you go, you have to replace the time that was spent doing that with doing something else, don't you? So how did you think you used your strengths, your gifts, to help you do something else rather than go shopping?
Well, you know, one of the things I recommend to others when they start any kind of shopping hiatus is start a list of what I like to do instead of shopping, and start that as soon as possible. But here's a caveat: don't expect anything on that list to give you what shopping gives you. Now, I came to this quite a ways into my journey. I didn't start out, I wished I'd known that right at the very beginning. It would have been helpful, because I really was stumbling around, you know, sort of, it's like someone stumbling around the ground, and occasionally, you know, I'd pick up a a piece of crystal, and sometimes I'd pick up a cow pat. And it was just, just random. And but coming to that ideal was really helpful. And for me, I look back and I see all kinds of SF things that I was doing, even just putting more attention into cooking and creating nourishing meals and turning that into a process and experience. Again, very practical, to do with relationships. It was always about doing something, within my family. So recognizing these kinds of things. And of course, from a type perspective, how valuable would that be to be able to say, well, what are the things that my type is naturally drawn to, and how can I bring those things into it? Because you cannot just take something like an overshopping issue, which has consumed so much head and heart space. You can't just take it out and not put something in. You have to put something else back in. And if you don't, something else in that void of unawareness will rush in to fill the space. It's like taking a boulder out and it's raining. It will fill up with water. And so that is a really helpful tool. And, sometimes I refer to it as scaffolding. You want to put some scaffolding around this, so you don't fall off and break your leg.
Yeah. Have you noticed, you've worked with thousands of women who've got overshopping problems with your Shop Your Wardrobe program. Have you noticed if there's any particular where you'd say, are there some types who are more commonly find overshopping an issue? Or I know you haven't typed everybody. So.
I haven't typed any of them, actually. And I think that would be a really interesting issue because, in our style type reports, we put in something about shopping. It was part of our interview process. And of course, the whole idea that all women love shopping, that is a very common myth. And there are so many women that do not like shopping for a variety of reasons. Women who have body image issues, that's actually quite a common one. I mention it in the book, meeting women who do not like to look at themselves in a mirror, and changing room mirrors are often highly distorted. The way that they're positioned and whether they're out, a couple of inches at the top, and all kinds of things that happen in changing rooms, through to women that they're just not interested in shopping, or image and personal presentation just doesn't rank very high on their list of things to be interested in. They really have other things that they would prefer to think about and do. So it's very hard to link this to the style types in that way.
Yeah. It would be something I'd be finding quite fascinating to go, there's some, because I'm just thinking about other ESFJ clients I've had large wardrobes. They're, where I go, on the whole, large wardrobes, and enjoy shopping. It's, and definitely SFs on the whole, I'm just thinking about wardrobes, generally larger wardrobes. And what's I always think is quite funny when somebody goes, I've got a big wardrobe, and I'll get there and think, this is not big. So one person's small as somebody else's large, and the other way around. But it is one of those things that perception of what is large and small. And that can also, for some people, it's, if you only had, if you went, I'm going to do a project 333 and you had 33 garments, you'd probably go insane. And that's where, and I always remember she was an INFP, and she said, I was going to do project 333 or something. And she thought it was 333 garments.
Right.
She discovered it was 33. She was like, I'm out of here.
Right.
She said, and she was INFP, but she was like, for her, that daily creativity of creating outfits out of stuff that she didn't normally, it wasn't, she didn't put things together the same way every day. She always wanted to have that creative experience. And you talk about this in your book about, I'm going to create outfits out of things I don't normally put together. I'm going to keep on trying to wear more of my wardrobe. And so if you've only got a tiny wardrobe, you are limited in that way. And for some people, that limitation feels like freedom.
Absolutely.
And for other people, it feels like you've just put a straitjacket on them.
Yes.
And lock them up in a box.
And when I started my year, it was really interesting. There were quite a few minimalism challenges going around. Courtney and 333, were sort of reaching a pinnacle of success. There was another one called 100 items. The challenge was to reduce your life to 100 items total. Then there was the Great American Apparel Diet. I wrote about that in the book. There was the Uniform Project, which a woman wore the same dress. It was a black shift every single day for a year. And since then, of course, there have been many books that have been written about this idea of consuming less and streamlining. And that never, ever, ever appealed to me.
Yeah. And there's got to be a personality element to that.
Oh, there absolutely has to. There was a woman doing a year-long challenge. She started a couple of months after me, and we both got a bit of media attention here in Australia. And at the end of her year, she'd moved to some, not even a regional area, but a country area, literally down a dusty track with a cattle dog. And she ended up with 2 pairs of jeans, 3 T-shirts, a sarong, and a pair of thongs. And this was her goal. She achieved her goal, and I applaud and herald that. That's what she wanted to achieve. That to me was never what I wanted to achieve. And I think this is the thing. A lot of material, courseware and other material that exists around over shopping is designed to minimalize, to reduce. And I think this is possibly where what I've provided fits into a space that others have not, which is about how you can still enjoy style and getting dressed every day. And if this is something that you really enjoy, you don't have to stop enjoying this. Loving style is not a crime or a sin or a deficit in your personality. It's just about ways to do it that make you feel good before, during, and after the shopping part of it. And also making sure that anything appearance related is in its proper proportion in your life, because truly there are more important things in life than the way that you look. Of course it's important. We wouldn't be having this conversation. We wouldn't have done 16 Style Types. Your blog wouldn't be called Inside Out Style Blog if it wasn't important. It's just that you can overdo it. And, it's about, again, balance.
Yeah. Finding that balance and keeping that balance. I mean, there's lots of great tips and things in here, Jill, and I do recommend everybody goes and gets a copy down from Amazon. You can get it now at Amazon, and has a read, because there's so much, and you've got lots of tips and stuff for people who do have, or do want to look at their shopping habits and things. And I think it's great that you say too that it's not about making less. And I think that's the problem with so much of it. Well, you must be wrong if you're over shopping. It should be about minimalizing. Like, you don't need to be a minimalist, and you still enjoy shopping. This is something we've been shopping together on many occasions. Jill these days tends to prefer thrift shopping most of the time. And but it's getting it into the balance of where does it fit in your life, and it's not the only thing you do in the way that probably was your only hobby for some time.
Yeah, hobbies 1, 2, and 3 is my favorite things to do. How about shopping? Well, how about a little bit more shopping? Well, why don't we go shopping? Yes, exactly.
So grab your copy now over on Amazon.